Imagine a world born from a collision of fire and ice, where the first giant emerged from the void, nourished by an ancient cow licking the frozen walls of eternity. But why did the gods betray this giant, Ymir, and use his body to shape the world we know? Uncover the origins of Midgard, crafted from sacrifice and chaos, and discover how these ancient tales carry whispers of cosmic balance. Imagine a silence so profound that even the concept of sound does not exist. A vast, still void stretches endlessly in every direction. It is neither dark nor light. It is only emptiness, and its name is Ginnungagap. At the edges of this silent expanse sat two realms in stark contrast to one another. To the north lay Niflheim, a land of freezing cold mists and endless ice. To the south, the chaotic firelands of Muspelheim churned with unbearable heat. These two extremes existed without conflict for untold ages until something began to shift. Slowly, the frost of Niflheim breathed out icy rivers, and flames from Muspelheim's inferno sparked and danced toward Ginnungagap. Where the frozen and the fiery collided, sparks leapt and sizzled, and in this clash, the first fragile bursts of life flickered into existence. Out of this meeting of opposites, something incredible happened. A being was born. He was neither ice nor fire, but held remnants of both in his immense, primal form. This was Ymir, the very first of all giants. His existence was as raw and untamed as the forces that created him. Ymir wasn't alone for long, though. In the emptiness of Ginnungagap, another vital form appeared. As glaciers from Niflheim melted, a peculiar figure emerged from the frozen sheets, a great cow named Audumla. Her presence was gentle yet purposeful, and her role became clear. She was there to nourish. Rivers of milk flowed from her to sustain Ymir, enabling him to grow strong. Audumla herself survived on the ice around her. Gently, she licked the frost, uncovering something extraordinary hidden within. Day by day, with steady persistence, Audumla's tongue revealed the form of another being frozen in the ice. At first, there was only a hint of hair. Then, by the next day, the shape of a head was uncovered. Finally, a full figure stood free. This was Buri, the first of the gods, a striking contrast to Ymir the giant. Where Ymir represented chaos and untamed creation, Buri stood for form and potential to shape the world. This moment carried a quiet but profound message. The constant, gentle act of Audumla licking the ice, slowly but with purpose, embodied the emergence of life from chaos. Something so steady and small became the bridge between primal disorder and the order soon to come. It was the first breath of persistence, the first act of a shaping force. But the stillness of Ginnungagap could not last forever. From Ymir came the frost giants, born from the sweat of his body as he slept. Forces of chaos and raw nature multiplied, spreading through the void. As these giants flourished, Buri gave rise to a lineage of gods, and among them were three figures who would go on to shape everything: Odin and his brothers, Vili and Ve. These three did not emerge in a world already prepared for them. They were born into a space trembling with growing tension, a space where chaos and creation danced uneasily, waiting for what would come next. It was clear to the young gods that this balance between fire, ice, and life could not remain stable forever. Ymir and the giants represented unchecked growth and disorder, a force that would eventually consume everything. A choice lay ahead. Let this chaos continue to dominate or act decisively to forge something new. The gods, led by Odin, chose the latter. The decision came at a great cost. The brothers turned against Ymir, striking him down in a monumental act of betrayal and creation. From Ymir's enormous body, the gods began to shape the 9 worlds, the realms that would come to contain all existence. His flesh became the land underfoot. His blood spilled out as vast oceans, lakes, and rivers. His bones formed towering mountains, solid and unyielding, and from the fragments of his skull, they stretched the sky overhead, creating an endless dome to shelter the new world. But this act of creation was not a triumphant moment of calm. It was turbulent and layered with complexity. Ymir's fall was not merely the end of one being, but the reshaping of all existence. Were the gods right in what they did? Was this an act of necessity or an unforgivable betrayal? These questions lingered, echoing in the cosmos they had just begun to form. The balance of opposites had given rise to something truly new, a world born of sacrifice. As Ymir's remnants continued to shape what would one day be called Midgard, other realms began to take form. Above, the shining realm of Asgard glimmered with the promise of God's dominion and wisdom. Below, deep and shadowed, the misty underworld of Helheim began to grow, a place where those untouched by glory would journey. Like pieces of a larger puzzle, the 9 worlds emerged from this balance of destruction and renewal, each finding its place within the cosmic blueprint. And at the center of it all, this intricate system of realms was held together by an invisible thread, one woven with tension, uncertainty, and creativity. Even as these realms formed, the story of sacrifice was not yet done. Beneath the gentle stability of their creation was a heaviness, a weight that lingered from the enormity of Ymir's death. His legacy would carry through generations, raising questions of justice, mercy, and necessity that echoed in every part of what the gods had built. This moment was both the end of one chapter and the fragile start of another. It's remarkable to think of how much the quieter forces played a role in this creation, alongside the grand and dramatic. Autumnla's steady work, the gentle licking of ice to bring forth Buri, teaches us how persistence can carve paths even in the face of chaos. It reminds us that creation is rarely loud. It is the product of countless small moments working together to reshape the world. With Ymir gone and the 9 realms seemingly balanced, the gods stood at the edge of their creation with a question. What now? They had the framework of a world, but they needed to fill it, to shape it. Their decision to use Ymir's body as their canvas had been monumental, yet it was only the beginning. They still had to build a realm where life could thrive, one balanced and protected, a realm destined to be home to something entirely new. And so, the gods turned their focus to Midgard, the realm they would craft for humankind. But how do you build a world from the remains of a giant? What do the gods create next? The gods stood before the immense, lifeless body of Ymir, the primordial giant. For a moment they paused, surrounded by the hushed remnants of what had been. Everything was still, but not at peace. Ymir's presence had once dominated the chaotic void, his form vast and overflowing with raw, untamed energy. Now, it was reduced to silence, waiting for what would come next. The gods looked at each other knowingly. To leave things as they were would mean allowing chaos to linger, untethered and unresolved. To move forward, they had to use what lay before them, and so they began. Every decision they made was deliberate, creating order from the remains of the giant. From Ymir's flesh, they shaped the earth itself, spreading it out as the foundation of a new realm. This land was vast and varied, formed from what had once been chaos itself. His blood poured forth to become the oceans, lakes, and rivers, carving pathways through the land and filling the valleys with shimmering water. The bones they took became solid, jagged mountains, rising high and stretching out to form Midgard's rugged edges. Each piece of him held a purpose, each fragment contributing to the vision of a world structured and complete. Even the more delicate parts of Ymir carried significance. His teeth were scattered across the ground, becoming the stones and boulders that now dotted the landscape. The gods worked tirelessly, placing each element with thought and care. They lifted Ymir's vast skull and set it high above, creating a dome over the new world. This would be the sky, stretching endlessly and anchoring the realm below. But the sky needed support, something to hold it in place. To stabilize their creation, they appointed 4 dwarves, each named for a cardinal direction. Nordri held the north, Sudri the south, Austri the east, and Vestri the west. These steadfast figures stood at the edges of the realm, a reminder that even the heavens required balance to endure. Ymir's very brain found its place in this grand creation. The gods transformed it into clouds, soft and ever-changing, drifting through the sky they had just raised. These clouds carried rain, nourishing the land below and completing the cycle of elements that would define this new world. Yet, as the gods worked, traces of what they had done lingered in the air. Their act of creation had not come without a sense of gravity. Ymir's sacrifice was profound, leaving behind a tension in the world they had built. Was this the cost of balance? The question lingered, unspoken, yet always present. Despite the weight of their actions, the world they shaped began to take on clear form. Midgard, the central realm, was envisioned as a place where life could truly flourish. To bring light and motion to this new landscape, the gods drew sparks and embers from the fiery realm of Muspelheim. These sparks were scattered across the vast sky, becoming the stars that sprinkled the night. From the same flames, they created the sun and moon, celestial bodies that brought warmth and rhythm to the days and nights. In their endless dance across the heavens, the sun and moon introduced times of light and dark, giving the world a steady, nurturing presence. At the center of it all lay Midgard, a realm destined not just to exist, but to thrive. The gods saw potential in this place, something unique. They walked its shores, taking in the land they had shaped. There, near the edge of the sea, they found 2 pieces of driftwood washed up from the waves. The first was an ash log, tall and strong. The second was a piece of elm, smooth and supple. Holding both in their hands, the gods decided to create something entirely new. Beings unlike the giants or themselves, they would create humanity. Odin stepped forward first, breathing into the wood the gift of life itself. The pieces stirred, shifting into figures. Vili stood beside Odin and gave the newly formed beings emotion and consciousness. Awareness filled their gazes, and with it came the capacity for feeling, understanding, and thought. Finally, they completed their creation, granting them senses, the ability to see, hear, and speak. From the ash came Ask, the first man. From the elm emerged Embla, the first woman. Together, they would shape the future of Midgard, filling it with stories and legacies yet to come. The creation of Ask and Embla was more than a simple act of shaping figures from wood. It was a deliberate choice, tying humanity to the very essence of the world itself. Trees, a symbol of growth and endurance, became the origin of humankind. Ash and elm, 2 trees with distinct qualities, suggested the varied nature of the human spirit. Strong and adaptable, yet capable of bending without breaking. This connection between the natural world and the human spirit reminded the gods of their role as creators and caretakers. Humanity was not just another piece of the world, it was intertwined with it. With Ask and Embla standing at the shores of Midgard, the realm became more than just earth, sky, and sea. It became a place filled with potential, where life could grow and evolve. Yet Midgard was not left to fend for itself. It stood surrounded by its neighboring realms, distinct yet connected to the larger cosmos. The gods watched over it, ensuring its survival and promising its protection. To shield it from the forces of chaos that still existed, they encircled the realm with a great barrier. Out of Ymir's eyelashes, they created a boundary, enclosing Midgard within a protective fortress. This safeguard was a reminder of the ongoing balance between creation and destruction, a fragile boundary that held the world together. The gods continued to watch as Midgard settled under its new sky. Life began to stir, small at first but growing steadily. The land, shaped from sacrifice, now pulsed with energy and growth. Streams flowed from distant mountaintops, carving paths through valleys. Trees took root in the soil, drawing nourishment from the remains of the giant. Midgard, born from the ultimate act of destruction, was alive. Every element of Midgard told this story of renewal. Its mountains stood as monuments to the act of creation, towering remnants of Ymir's form. The oceans and rivers moved in endless cycles, breathing life into the land. Above it all, the clouds drifted, remnants of thought transformed into the beauty of the sky. Humanity, too, carried this legacy within them, crafted from the essence of nature itself, yet imbued with gifts from the gods. Still, the question remained. Could the gods' actions ever be free from the shadow of their betrayal? Would this act of creation always carry with it the thread of destruction? The duality of their work, that creation demanded sacrifice, echoed through every part of the new world. It was a balance the gods had accepted, but one they would always carry. As Midgard flourished, Ask and Embla began their lives, exploring the realm that had been crafted for them. They were both the product of the gods and the protectors of what had been created. Their footsteps over the earth became the beginning of human stories, tales that would weave into the threads of the cosmos. Midgard had become more than just a realm. It was now the home of an unfolding legacy. The gods, having completed their work, stepped back to observe. Their creation was both fragile and enduring, a place formed from destruction yet alive with the possibility of growth. Midgard, protected and watched over by the gods, stood as a testament to their ability to bring order to chaos. Its existence would forever carry the weight of its origins. But this was only the beginning. Midgard, sitting at the heart of the nine worlds, stood as one realm among many. And though it was surrounded by oceans and barriers, it would never be truly isolated. There was something greater connecting it to the fabric of existence, an intricate web weaving through every realm and every story. What was it that held everything together, stretching from the heights of Asgard to the depths of Helheim? What connected all creation into one vast flowing system? Imagine a tree so vast that its roots reach into hidden depths and its branches stretch far beyond sight, connecting all that exists. This is Yggdrasil, the world tree, a living, breathing thread that ties together the nine realms of existence. It isn't just a tree. It is the very structure that keeps the cosmos intact. Its roots and branches form a web of connection and balance, weaving through the heavens and the earth, binding every living thing and every realm to one central point. It is timeless, powerful, and yet, like everything in Norse mythology, touched by fragility. At the base of this great ash tree lies its foundation. 3 colossal roots burrow deep into the core of existence. Each root reaches into a different realm, anchoring Yggdrasil to the cosmos. One root nestles into Niflheim, the land of iciness and mists, where beneath it is the well of Hvergelmir. From this well flow the primal rivers that first shaped the land, carrying with them the memory of creation itself. Another root winds its way toward Jotunheim, the realm of giants. There, it encounters Mimir's well, a pool brimming with unmatched wisdom, knowledge so profound that even the gods seek it. The third route extends to Asgard, the home of the Aesir gods, where it drinks from a well of Erd, watched over by 3 mysterious beings, the Norns. These figures, ever weaving, ever watching, control the skeins of fate for gods and men alike. Being the heart of the cosmos, Yggdrasil is more than its roots and branches. Its slender trunk connects the levels of existence, with Midgard, the human realm, situated near its center. Above Midgard are realms like Asgard, home to Odin, Thor, and the other gods of the Aesir. Farther still are luminous realms of elves and higher beings, ethereal places bright with magic and mystery. Below Midgard lie realms shrouded in shadow. Helheim, the misty underworld where unglorified dead gather, and Svartalfheim, the underground realm of the cunning dwarves. Above and below spread the entirety of the 9 worlds, all held together by the presence of Yggdrasil, as if it were a bridge between opposing forces. Hidden within Yggdrasil itself, life thrives in continuous motion, illustrating the tree's role as a living system. Perched on its highest branches sits an eagle, vigilant and all-seeing, surveying the realms below. At its very roots dwells Nidhogr, a serpent coiled in darkness, always gnawing at the base of the tree. This small but persistent act is a constant reminder of the tree's vulnerability. Between these 2 extremes, a constant duality of light and dark, scurries Ratatoskr, the mischievous squirrel. His task is peculiar yet vital, carrying messages, taunts, and gossip between the eagle above and Nidhogr below. These creatures symbolize the restless tension within Yggdrasil. It binds everything together, yet its stability is always under challenge. While the great world tree holds the cosmos together, it is also a meeting place, particularly for the gods. Beneath its sprawling branches lies a sacred site where the Aesir gather to hold council. Here, the gods exchange wisdom, settle disputes, and weave their own plans for the fate of the cosmos. It is under the shade of this immense tree that decisions are made, not just for Asgard or Midgard, but for the interconnected worlds beyond. Yggdrasil is both physical and symbolic, a constant reminder of unity amidst division, of interconnectedness despite distance. Yet even Yggdrasil, immense and vital as it is, foreshadows the great end foretold in Norse prophecy. The tree's roots and branches are not invincible, always being slowly eaten away by forces of decay. This delicate balance between life thriving within the 9 realms and the faint whisper of their eventual unraveling is central to understanding the cycles of Norse mythology. Yggdrasil will survive much, but not all. The world tree is tied to Ragnarök, the ultimate destruction of the current order and the birth of something new. The prophecy of Ragnarök tells that at the world's end, Yggdrasil will tremble. The branches that once held together the 9 realms will begin to crack, and Nidhoggr's relentless gnawing will finally take its toll. As the cosmic forces converge for their final battle, even Yggdrasil, which has unified and sustained existence for so long, will falter. And yet, this doesn't mean the end, not entirely. In Norse belief, the end is not final. It is a transformation. Yggdrasil, too, carries the promise of renewal within its breaking. Beneath its branches, seeds may fall, and from them, something new can begin. But until that final moment, Yggdrasil remains. It isn't untouchable, and it isn't permanent. Yet its presence keeps the world spinning. It stands as both a protector and a witness, a symbol of life's enduring cycles. Just as its roots drink from sacred, ancient wells, its branches hold the weight of the cosmos, leaving no realm disconnected. Above it, the sky turns with sun and moon, and below, the restless dead move toward the shadows. Whether one looks up or down, the sight of Yggdrasil reminds both gods and mortals. All things are linked, and that connection is what keeps existence in motion. As you let your mind rest on this image of Yggdrasil, imagine its slow, steady breath, the way its branches shift almost imperceptibly as it stretches toward the heavens. Beneath its ancient bark, life pulses, vibrant and eternal, even as it carries the reminders of wear and decay. It is not a perfect symbol, and that's what makes it fitting. The tree teaches an undeniable truth. Nothing remains unchanged, and yet, in that change, lies the strength to endure. It is here, on this vast, interconnected tree, that countless stories have been set into motion. The gods under its branches, the creatures dwelling in its roots, and the humans whose fates it holds, all rely on its fragile balance, each playing their part in this grand web of existence. Imagine standing at the base of Yggdrasil for just a moment, peering upward at its seemingly endless branches, while knowing they are also rooted deeply in the mysteries below. You can almost feel its quiet hum, the pulse of life within its wood, reaching across the realms. Yet for all its grandeur, Yggdrasil is also a tree that asks questions. Can unity truly last if even the tree itself carries the seeds of decay? Can balance exist when the roots are under constant attack? These questions, much like the stories of gods and men, remain unanswered. But that uncertainty is part of what gives the world tree its power. It embodies the delicate and shifting nature of the cosmos. From its roots in Niflheim to its highest branch in Asgard, Yggdrasil connects every corner of existence. Through its branches flow the energies of life and death, growth and destruction, chaos and order. Yet what makes this tree remarkable is not just its interconnectedness, but the balance it strikes, even under pressure. In this way, Yggdrasil reflects the cycles of life: growth, decay, preservation, and renewal. As the gods gather beneath the tree and the squirrel scampers along its trunk, carrying whispers from root to branch, Yggdrasil continues its quiet work. It holds together the realms, bridging distances even as it struggles against the forces that threaten its integrity. The eagle waits and watches, the serpent gnaws, and through it all, Yggdrasil stands, a pillar of life, a promise of renewal, and a reminder that all things, even the strongest, are part of an eternal cycle. Among the countless stories attached to the tree, two stand out. One belongs to a god who sought wisdom in order to guide the 9 realms, and the other to a protector with the strength to shield them. Together, they embody Yggdrasil's duality, an endless hunger for knowledge and the enduring will to defend what has been built. Both forces flow from its branches, as intertwined as the worlds it connects. Picture Odin, standing at the edge of Mimir's well, a place hidden within the roots of Yggdrasil. The waters of the well shimmer in the dim light, holding the secrets of all existence, both past and future. It's said that anyone who drinks from this well gains wisdom beyond imagining, but the price is steep. For Odin, the cost was his eye. Without hesitation, he plucked it from its socket and offered it to Mimir, the keeper of the well. As the waters rippled and accepted his sacrifice, Odin became the one-eyed god, a visible reminder of what he had endured to obtain the knowledge he sought. And yet for Odin, this was only the beginning. Driven by a hunger for understanding, Odin was a figure apart from the other gods. He wasn't just a warrior or a ruler, he was a seeker. His pursuit of wisdom was relentless, pushing him into realms others avoided and leading him to sacrifices most would never dare make. Unlike Thor, whose strength protected Midgard, or Freya, who mastered the mysteries of love and magic, Odin's path was one of quiet endurance and calculated risk. One of the most harrowing moments in his quest came when he sought the power of the runes. These symbols were far more than mere markings. They held magic capable of influencing fate itself. To gain their knowledge, Odin offered not just his comfort, but his very self. He hung from the branches of Yggdrasil, pierced by his own spear, sacrificing his body for 9 long days and nights. The tree swayed under his weight as the winds howled around him. There was no food, no drink, only pain and isolation. His strength waned as he stared into the abyss, his resolve tested to its very core. But on the 9th night, as he hovered between life and death, the runes appeared to him, their secrets unraveling in his mind. When he finally descended from the tree, he carried with him the unmatched power to heal, to protect, and to curse. This moment cemented Odin as more than a god. He was a keeper of ancient, transformative knowledge. Odin's wisdom wasn't confined to the runes or the waters of Mimir's well. His understanding stretched far beyond the confines of Asgard, thanks in part to his 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin. Their names mean thought and memory, and they served as Odin's messengers, flying across the 9 realms each day. These sleek black birds perched everywhere, from the peaks of Jotunheim to the misty forests of Midgard, gathering secrets, events, and whispers from across the worlds. At dusk, they would return to Odin and settle on his shoulders, leaning in close to murmur all they had seen and learned. Through their eyes, Odin became a god who saw more than what lay directly before him. He saw the struggles of humans, the schemes of giants, and the shifting threads of fate woven by the Norns. And woven into that knowledge was something that haunted him, the vision of Ragnarök. Odin knew of the prophecy, the day when the gods themselves would face their doom. He had seen glimpses of it in his dreams, and knew that it could not be truly avoided. He would stand against Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, knowing he could not win. He would see Asgard burn, the skies darken, and the very fabric of Yggdrasil tremble. But instead of succumbing to despair, this vision propelled him forward. Every scrap of wisdom he acquired, every secret he uncovered, it was all gathered with one desperate hope: to delay the inevitable for as long as possible. Perhaps within the threads of fate, there was a way to bend the outcome, even if it could not be wholly unraveled. This burden of foresight wasn't shared lightly. While other gods reveled in their present power, Odin lived with a constant awareness of the future. Knowing the fragility of the world added gravity to every decision he made. It also set him apart from his counterparts. Thor's mighty hammer could smash mountains and protect the realms with its sheer power, but it was Odin's quiet perseverance and wisdom that fortified their defenses against unseen threats. His sacrifices, painful though they were, had given him tools that strength alone could never achieve. Even as Odin bore these burdens, he remained a figure of profound respect. The gods turned to him not only as their leader, but as their strategist and guide. He didn't walk in the brash confidence of Thor or the cunning allure of Loki. Instead, his steps were measured, his actions deliberate. Behind his one piercing eye and stoic demeanor, there was an unspoken weight, a reminder of what wisdom often costs. The balance Odin maintained was a delicate one. His pursuit of wisdom required sacrifice, yet it also gave him the clarity to lead and protect. Hugin and Munin were ever at his side, bringing him the knowledge he needed to steer the realms through countless threats. But even with all his insight, Odin understood one unchangeable truth. Fate moves forward, indifferent to even the wisest of gods. Still, he forged on, not in defiance of this truth, but in acceptance of it. If Ragnarök could not be avoided, he would ensure the gods were ready to meet it with courage and integrity. This quiet strength made Odin not just a figure of reverence, but one of inspiration. His story wasn't about triumph, but about persistence in the face of uncertainty. He showed that wisdom isn't something gained easily, nor is it ever complete. To Odin, it was a constant pursuit, a journey without end. He sacrificed not out of arrogance, but out of a deep sense of responsibility to the nine realms and the beings within them. And so the Allfather stands, a figure embodying the complexity of Norse mythology. With one eye always gazing into the distance, he remains a symbol of foresight, a god who endlessly seeks what lies just beyond reach. His sacrifices gave him the tools to lead, to guide, and to prepare. And though burdened by what he knew, he stayed the course, always striving to protect what the gods had built. This devotion to wisdom and his role as a guardian of knowledge make Odin one of the most enduring characters in Norse mythology. Even now, standing with his ravens on his shoulders and gazing across the branches of Yggdrasil, Odin's presence reminds us of the enduring power of persistence. Wisdom doesn't come easily. It demands struggle, patience, and often great pain. But in the end, it is the force that shapes leaders and protects what truly matters. As Odin continues his eternal search for understanding, his legacy intertwines with that of another god. Where Odin brought wisdom, strategy, and foresight, another brought unmatched strength, rallying the gods with his courage. While the Allfather sought the deeper truths of the universe, his counterpart wielded raw, unwavering protection. And so, as Odin reflects on knowledge hard-won, his eye turns towards someone whose power ensured safety across the realms. Thor, the mighty guardian of Midgard. Thor, the son of Odin and protector of both gods and humans, was a figure of immense strength and unshakable resolve. In a world fraught with chaos, his presence was reassuring. His role wasn't driven by strategy or cunning, it was grounded in action. Where problems arose, be it marauding giants, hungry serpents, or arrogant foes, Thor was there, hammer in hand, to meet them head-on. If Midgard's survival depended on anyone's relentless commitment, it was his. At the heart of Thor's power was Mjolnir, his legendary hammer. Forged by the dwarves, it was more than just a weapon. The hammer was an extension of Thor himself. Its presence symbolized strength, protection, and an unyielding barrier against any who sought to disrupt the balance of the nine realms. Mjolnir wasn't a perfect creation. In fact, its handle was shorter than intended, the result of a minor flaw during its forging. Even so, its excellence was unmatched. This mighty hammer carried the force to crush mountains and summon thunderous storms, yet its bond with Thor made it remarkable As soon as he hurled it, Mjolnir would return to his hand, no matter how far it traveled. Wielding it, Thor became a living fortress, an unbeatable guardian whose strength lay in both weapon and will. It was no small feat to forge such a tool. The dwarves who crafted Mjolnir were masters of their craft, renowned across the realms for their skill. In their underground forge, lit by the red glow of molten fire, they worked tirelessly to bring the hammer to life. The air sparkled with magic and heat, carrying with it the sense that this creation would be destined for greatness. The result, though imperfect, stood as the anchor of countless legends. With Mjolnir in hand, Thor was unstoppable, his strength amplified by the belt Meginjord, another creation of the dwarves, which doubled his already astonishing power. Yet for all these tools, it was Thor's spirit that ultimately made him the guardian Midgard could rely on. But the world Thor protected was never peaceful for long. Challenges came as often as storms, and Thor met each one without hesitation. One of his greatest and most symbolic battles was his duel with Hrungnir, a giant who boasted he could easily defeat the god of thunder. Hrungnir's arrogance was as solid as the massive stone weapon he wielded. When the two clashed, it wasn't finesse or subtlety that ruled the fight. It was pure force. Hrungnir hurled his weapon, but Mjolnir met it in midair with a deafening collision that split Hrungnir's weapon apart. With unrelenting precision, Mjolnir continued its trajectory, striking directly into Hrungnir and ending the fight in a single, decisive moment. Thor's strength didn't just protect. It set unshakable boundaries for those who sought to disrupt the god's peace. Not all of Thor's tales, however, were marked by sheer might. Among his adventures was the theft of Mjolnir by the giant Thrym, who demanded Freya's hand in marriage as ransom for its return. The thought of a world without Mjolnir posed a new kind of threat, not only to Thor, but to the stability of the realms themselves. After much debate among the gods, a clever plan was devised to retrieve the hammer. Thor, reluctant but determined, disguised himself as Freyja, complete with a bridal gown and veil. The sight of the god of thunder in such a state may have drawn some laughter, but Thor's focus never wavered. During the mock wedding feast, Thrym called for Mjolnir to be placed in his bride's lap to bless the union. The moment it touched Thor's hands, the veil was cast aside, and Mjolnir roared to life. With his hammer returned, Thor unleashed its full power, defeating Thrym and his allies. The episode showed not only his resourcefulness, but also the depth of his connection to Mjolnir. It was more than a tool. It was part of him, and could not be kept away for long. For all his triumphs, Thor also faced challenges that tested his limits. None were more ominous than his encounters with the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr. This serpent was no ordinary foe. Its body encircled the entire world, a living force of chaos that Thor would eventually battle to the death during Ragnarök. But long before that final confrontation, the two clashed. In one story, Thor went fishing with the giant Hymir, his goal set on catching something extraordinary. Using an ox's head as bait, Thor hooked Jormungandr itself, dragging the monstrous serpent up from the depths of the sea. The struggle was fierce, the sea churning violently as Thor gripped his line and prepared to strike with Mjolnir. But just as the moment of triumph approached, Hymir panicked at the sight of the serpent's immense power. He cut the line, and Jormungandr slipped back into the depths. The encounter ended without resolution, leaving tensions between Thor and the Midgard serpent unresolved, yet charged with growing inevitability. Thor's interactions with Jormungandr underscored a truth he understood all too well. His battles were never truly finished. Every victory brought temporary peace, but threats always lingered on the horizon. As a protector, Thor accepted this reality, facing each new trial with the same unrelenting courage. To the gods and humans alike, he was a figure of stability. Under his watch, Midgard stood strong, even as storms gathered on the edges of the Nine Realms. The people who looked to him didn't see just a powerful god, but a shield, a force standing between them and the chaos that sought to consume their world. Even in his moments of levity, Thor's importance as a protector shone through. His feasts and lighter escapades, marked by humor and camaraderie, balanced his stories of great battles. These moments reminded both gods and humans that Thor was not just a distant figure of strength, but someone who cared deeply for the realms he defended. His laugh was as hearty as his strikes, his presence a reassurance that under his watch, danger would be met with unwavering will. And yet, for all his victories, one battle still loomed ahead: Ragnarök. The prophecy foretold Thor's inevitable fate, a final showdown with Jormungandr. During this cataclysmic event, he would defeat the serpent, striking it down in a clash so powerful it would become legend. But the venom of the serpent would prove too much, and Thor would take 9 steps before succumbing to the poison's bite. Even in his end, Thor's role would be one of triumph and sacrifice, ensuring the serpent's defeat to protect the realms one last time. This vision of the future was both a weight and a testament to who Thor was. His strength, while unparalleled, was never used for personal gain, but to ensure Midgard and the cosmos remained standing, even at great cost to himself. Thor's legacy has persisted across generations, not just because of his strength, but because of what that strength meant. His willingness to face any foe, to laugh in the face of danger, and to protect those who depended on him, made him a figure of deep admiration. Mjolnir became more than a weapon. It became a symbol of protection, a reminder of courage and resilience. Thor's tales, spanning immense battles, stolen hammers, and venom-filled prophecies, paint a picture of a god whose strength was matched by his loyalty and his compassion. As the gods marveled at Thor's might, and humans whispered his name in stories of courage, one thing remained clear: his role as protector was not just a duty, but a defining force that tied the worlds together. With Mjolnir in hand, Thor was a constant presence, ensuring that the chaos pressing at the edges of the 9 realms would never gain ground. His strength carried with it a kind of peace, a reassurance that no matter the storm, Thor would stand firm, hammer raised high. But even Thor's might could not halt what was written in the threads of fate. Ragnarök loomed unavoidably for all who dwelled within the 9 realms, bringing with it chaos, destruction, and the promise of an ending that was also a beginning. Picture a world where the air feels colder every day, where the sun rises later and sets earlier until it disappears entirely. The warmth you once relied on becomes a distant memory. This is the Fimbulwinter, the long and merciless winter that marks the beginning of the end. For 3 years, snow falls endlessly, storms howl without rest, and frost covers the land like a heavy shroud. There is no spring, no summer, just relentless cold. Crops fail, animals vanish, and hunger takes hold. Without food, people grow desperate, and what was once a community becomes a battlefield. Neighbors turn against each other, fighting for what little remains. As Midgard freezes, chaos begins to seep into every corner of the 9 realms. This eternal winter is not an accident. It is a sign, one of many the ancient prophecies warned about. Ragnarök, the end of the current world, has finally begun. Even the gods, powerful though they are, cannot stop it. From the depths of chaos, the forces of destruction stir. Earthquakes shake the roots of Yggdrasil itself, and the ground splits open, freeing Fenrir, the monstrous wolf. His howl echoes across the realms, a terrible sound that carries the weight of what's to come. Across the oceans, Jormungandr, the world's serpent, rises from the depths, its massive coils sending waves crashing against the shores of Midgard. And in the fiery realm of Muspelheim, the fire giant Surtur takes his sword, a blade burning brighter than the sun, and begins to march toward Asgard. The skies darken, the stars disappear, and above it all, the sun and moon are consumed by wolves, plunging the world into complete darkness. As the 9 realms descend into chaos, Loki, once the cunning trickster, takes his place as a leader of destruction. Having escaped his imprisonment, he gathers the giants and leads them against the gods in a final, devastating war. Hel, Loki's daughter, emerges from her shadowed realm of the dead, bringing with her a legion of the fallen, warriors with no loyalty to any realm but destruction itself. The heavens crack as these armies march toward the ultimate battleground. Meanwhile, in Asgard, the Aesir gods prepare themselves. Odin, with the knowledge of prophecy heavy in his mind, calls upon the bravest warriors from Valhalla. Those who died with honor are now summoned to fight one last time. The Einherjar, clad in shining armor, gather under Odin's command. These warriors have trained for centuries, knowing this moment would come. Thor readies Mjolnir, his hammer glowing with power, while Heimdall, the ever-watchful guardian, sounds Gjallarhorn. Its deep, resonant call travels through all the realms, announcing that the end is here. The battle begins with a clash so loud it seems to shake the very fabric of existence. Giants storm Asgard, their massive forms breaking through walls and gates. The gods meet them with steel, lightning, and fire. Odin rides into the chaos astride Sleipnir, his 8-legged horse, searching for Fenrir, the wolf destined to kill him. The moment they meet, the ground trembles. Fenrir's jaws, impossibly large, snap toward the Allfather, and the two collide in a battle both furious and brief. Despite Odin's unmatched wisdom and bravery, Fenrir's strength overwhelms him. In a single crushing bite, the monstrous wolf devours the king of the gods, fulfilling its terrible role in the prophecy. But Fenrir's triumph is not without consequence. Witnessing his father's fall, Vidar, Odin's son, steps forward. His silence throughout this war has been unbroken, but now his purpose becomes clear. With immense strength, Vidar forces Fenrir's jaws open, one foot pressing down on the wolf's lower jaw, while his hands grip the upper one. With a mighty effort, he tears Fenrir apart, avenging Odin and ending the wolf's threat forever. Elsewhere on the chaotic battlefield, Thor faces an opponent he has awaited for centuries. Rising from the sea, Jormungandr coils around mountains, venom dripping from its fangs. As the serpent towers over Midgard, Thor charges. The storm follows him, thunder rolling and lightning flashing across the darkened sky. Swinging Mjolnir, he strikes the world serpent with such force that the ground buckles beneath him. Again and again, the hammer connects, each blow resounding through the shattered realms. At last, with one final, all-powerful strike, Jormungandr collapses, its massive body crashing into the waves. But even in defeat, the serpent takes its toll. As it dies, Jormungandr releases a torrent of venom, a cloud so thick and poisonous it envelopes Thor. Victorious but doomed, Thor staggers 9 steps before collapsing. He lifts his hammer one last time before the venom claims him, his sacrifice preserving Midgard in its final moments. Near the heart of the battle, another duel ignites. Freyr, armed with bravery but lacking his great sword, faces Surtur. The fire giant's fiery blade cuts through everything in its path, melting even the unyielding stones of Asgard. Freyr fights valiantly, holding his ground against the advancing inferno, but without his sword, he is no match for Surtur's overwhelming fire. When Freyr falls, the giant's flames erupt with unchecked fury. Surtur raises his sword high and swings it across the battlefield, sending waves of fire across all 9 realms. Forests ignite, rivers boil, and mountains crumble beneath the blaze. Everything, the gods, the giants, and all of Midgard, is consumed by the unrelenting inferno. Loki finds himself locked in battle with Heimdall, the vigilant guardian of Asgard. Their fight is fierce and desperate, as neither holds anything back. The two figures, so different yet so entwined in fate, strike blow after blow. In the end, Heimdall and Loki deal each other a final, fatal wound. They fall together, their deaths marking the end of their storied rivalry. As the flames of Surtur rage on, the world itself begins to collapse. Yggdrasil, the great world tree, shudders violently, its branches breaking, its roots trembling. The 9 realms fall into disarray. The seas churn and rise, overtaking the land as the fires burn out. Water covers the mountains, extinguishing the last embers of Surtur's fire. The earth is silent, dark, and still. Everything that once was has been reduced to ash or submerged in an endless ocean. But Ragnarök was never just about the end. Within this destruction lies the quiet seed of renewal. Beneath the waters, life stirs once more. In the stillness, a new world begins to take shape. A few survivors remain. Vidar and Vali, sons of Odin, rise from the ruins, their fate to rebuild what has been lost. From Thor's line, his sons Modi and Magni inherit Mjolnir, the hammer that will once again protect the realms. And somewhere in the untouched lands, 2 human figures, Leif and Lifthrasir, emerge. They step forward into the new dawn, carrying the hope of humanity's future. As the waters recede and the earth begins to heal, the world breathes again. Trees grow where ashes once lay, flowers bloom, and streams flow clean and clear. The sun, stolen away during Ragnarök, is reborn through her daughter, shining on this transformed world. What was destroyed is not forgotten, but it makes way for something new. Ragnarök, in all its devastation, offers not finality but a cycle, a reminder that even in the greatest loss, there is renewal. This balance of destruction and rebirth speaks to the heart of Norse mythology. Nothing is permanent. All things, even the gods, are part of a larger cycle. Ragnarök is not just an ending. It is a call to embrace change, to see the possibility of growth after loss. The stories of destruction are not meant to frighten, but to soothe with the understanding that something new always follows the ashes. The 9 realms will never again be as they once were, but in their place lies possibility. The survivors step forward cautiously, ready to rebuild a world from the fragments left behind. Their existence is a quiet promise. Even after the darkest night, light will return, and with it, life continues. The gods may dominate the tales of Norse mythology, but the stories of human heroes are just as compelling, serving as reflections of courage, determination, and the unshakable spirit that defined Viking life. These heroes, though mortal, became immortal through the sagas that celebrated their bravery and resilience. Their lives were shaped by trials and triumphs, their deeds remembered not just as entertainment, but as examples of values that Vikings held sacred. Figures like Sigurdur the Dragon Slayer and Ragnar Lothbrok, the daring warrior king, live on as symbols of humanity's fight to forge meaning in a world dominated by the gods and fate. Sigurdur's journey, often told in flickering firelight, continues to echo through generations. His saga is one that speaks to the core of Viking beliefs, a relentless pursuit of glory tempered by the unavoidable pull of fate. Sigurdur was not born into an easy life. He was raised by Regan, a cunning blacksmith, who prepared him for an extraordinary task, slaying Fafnir, a dragon who guarded a vast and cursed hoard of treasure. This treasure, glittering with gold, was said to carry doom to anyone who possessed it. To retrieve it was to test one's strength against not just the danger of the beast, but also the foreboding shadow of destiny. Fafnir wasn't always a dragon. He had once been a dwarf, but was warped and twisted by the greed sparked by the cursed treasure. This transformation into a fearsome creature, with scales like armor and venomous breath, was a warning to those who might seek the treasure for themselves. But Sigurdur's task wasn't driven by greed. For him, slaying Fafnir was a test of courage, a way to prove himself in a world that demanded bold action. Armed with a sword forged by Regan and guided by a sense of purpose, Sigurdur confronted the dragon. He dug a trench to lie in, positioning himself beneath Fafnir's path. As the beast slithered overhead, Sigurdur thrust his sword upward, piercing its heart. With razor-sharp strength and careful planning, he overcame the seemingly insurmountable. But Sigurdur's victory came with a cost. After bathing in the blood of Fafnir, he gained the ability to understand the language of birds. This gift revealed to him that Regan, his mentor, intended to betray him to claim the treasure for himself. Sigurdur had to strike down Regan, yet another sacrifice brought about by Gold's cursed shadow. This hoard, despite its allure, carried a warning. Wealth untempered by honor destroys even those who think themselves above corruption. For Vikings, who valued loyalty and bravery, the lesson was clear. To seek treasure or glory without regard for the greater good was to risk ruin. Sigurdur's story didn't end with the dragon's death. It spiraled into a tale of love, betrayal, and tragedy as his fate intertwined with Brynhild, a shield maiden who captured his heart. Their love seemed destined to thrive, but the cursed treasure continued to wield its dark influence. Through deception and magic, Sigurdur was separated from Brynhild and married another woman, Gudrun. The betrayal anchored by this union drove Brynhild to despair, and her resulting actions set into motion the events leading to Sigurdur's death. His life, marked by immense strength and unwavering courage, ended in tragedy, a somber reminder of the price of fate in Viking lore. Yet Sigurdur's story endured because it carried hope amidst sorrow and lessons in the use of strength tempered with integrity. If Sigurdur's tale explored the weight of destiny, Ragnar Lothbrok's legend celebrated ingenuity and fearlessness. Ragnar is often remembered less as a single man and more as the embodiment of Viking ideals, bravery, cleverness, and a hunger for adventure. His deeds, some grounded in history and others embellished by generations of storytelling, reflect not just the man, but the values of his time. Ragnar's life was defined by bold actions, from epic battles to legendary encounters with mythical creatures. One of Ragnar's most famous feats speaks directly to the Viking spirit, his defeat of a massive serpent to rescue Thora, a princess trapped by the beast. The serpent's venom was a potent defense, ensuring that no ordinary armor could withstand it. But Ragnar, ever resourceful, coated his clothing in tar and sand, creating a protective barrier. This ingenuity not only allowed him to face the serpent, but also to emerge victorious. By slaying the beast, Ragnar not only earned the admiration of his peers, but won Thora's hand in marriage. The story became a testament to Viking values, where intelligence and courage were held as equal virtues. Ragnar's life wasn't simply a string of victories. It was his daring that often placed him in the gravest danger. Yet he faced every challenge with a confidence that bordered on defiance of fate. In his later years, Ragnar's ambition led him to England, where he sought to conquer new lands. But there, he met his greatest trial. Captured by King Aella of Northumbria, Ragnar was thrown into a pit of venomous snakes. Bound and surrounded, he faced death with remarkable composure, reportedly laughing and declaring his satisfaction that his sons would avenge him. That indomitable spirit, the refusal to surrender even in the face of death, solidified Ragnar's legend. His deeds and his character became the foundation for countless sagas, inspiring warriors to pursue glory, even knowing the risks. The human heroes of Norse mythology were not flawless. Their tales often balanced moments of great triumph with deep tragedy. Sigurdar, for all his strength, could not escape the curse tied to his victories. Ragnar, for all his ingenuity, could not prevent his own capture and death. Yet these heroes weren't remembered for how their stories ended. They were celebrated for how they faced life and its challenges. In Viking culture, what mattered most was not avoiding pain or failure, but living boldly and facing fate without fear. These stories gave Vikings a framework for understanding their place in the world. They reinforced ideals of bravery, loyalty, and the acceptance of whatever destiny the gods had woven for them. Facing death with courage and taking risks in pursuit of honor were not just personal choices. They were viewed as the highest callings. For warriors, such values made even an untimely death meaningful, ensuring that their names would endure long after their bodies faded. The sagas of Sigurdar, Ragnar, and countless other human heroes weren't just tales to entertain. They were lessons embedded in stories, passed down through generations to inspire. Around crackling hearths, in longhouses, or aboard ships cutting through icy waves, these legends reminded their listeners that they, too, could leave a mark on the world. Whether through bravery on the battlefield, cleverness in strategy, or resilience in the face of loss, every Viking was called to embody the values of the heroes who came before them. The resonance of these tales remains even today, long after the Viking Age has ended. They show how stories can bridge the gap between mortal lives and the infinite, helping people make sense of their struggles and see the significance of their choices. Vikings believed that to live courageously, even in the shadow of unavoidable fate, was to achieve a kind of immortality. To be remembered, to have one's name spoken with admiration and awe, was the ultimate triumph. The legacy of these human heroes ties into the broader themes of Norse mythology, of cycles, of endurance, of striving for greatness despite the inevitability of hardship. These stories offered not only a mirror to the Vikings' values, but also a glimpse of the afterlife they yearned for. Even in death, their deeds continued to resonate, paving the way to the eternal halls of Valhalla or the quiet fields of Folkvangr. As the heroes lived boldly in life, they were guaranteed a place among the myths that shaped the Viking spirit. Imagine a towering hall with golden shields lining the walls, the air filled with the sounds of laughter, the clinking of mead horns, and the clash of swords in friendly battle. This is Valhalla, the most iconic of the Viking afterlife realms, and the ultimate reward for warriors who fell gloriously in battle. Here, the chosen spend eternity training for the final fight at Ragnarök, their wounds miraculously healing at the end of each day, so they can rise again for feasting, camaraderie, and more combat. The din of life echoes endlessly through its great halls, reflecting the Viking ideals of courage, honor, and strength. But Valhalla was not the only afterlife destination in Norse mythology. For some, glory looked different, quieter, softer, and ruled by the radiant goddess Freya. In Folkvanger, the fields of Freya, the scene is calmer. Imagine golden fields stretching as far as the eye can see, dotted with wildflowers and bathed in gentle sunlight. Here, Freya gathers her chosen fallen warriors, half of all those who die in battle, and offers them a peaceful reward. While Valhalla resounds with noise and preparation for war, Folkvanger invites its inhabitants to rest in serenity. Yet, this afterlife holds just as much honor. Freya's embrace rewarded bravery, and her fields offered a tranquil eternity to those who proved themselves in the chaos of battle. Together, Valhalla and Folkvanger reflect two sides of the Viking afterlife, one of endless strife, the other of eternal calm. However, courage and sacrifice paved their way to both. But not every soul found its way to these noble destinations. For those who died outside of battle, whether they were farmers, merchants, or the elderly, there was Helheim. Ruled by Hel, the enigmatic daughter of Loki, this realm stood in stark contrast to the grand halls of Valhalla or the golden fields of Folkvanger. Helheim was a cold, silent place in a perpetual twilight where spirits wandered without celebration or purpose. There was no glory here, no constant festivity. Yet it was not a punishment either. Helheim simply represented the fate of those whose lives did not culminate in heroic death. Still, the contrast between Helheim and the vibrant afterlives of Valhalla and Folkvanger underscores the Viking emphasis on valor, action, and a life lived boldly. For the Vikings, these beliefs shaped not only their vision of the afterlife, but also their approach to death itself. To die in battle was not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It offered the chance for eternal glory and a life among the gods or Freya's chosen. This perspective made the Vikings fearless warriors, unafraid to meet their end so long as it had meaning. They entered battle with the knowledge that falling bravely was not failure, but fulfillment. The promise of Valhalla and Folkvanger inspired them to strive for a life of honor, where courage in the face of danger stood above all else. These beliefs found their expression in the rituals surrounding death. To ensure a warrior's safe passage to the afterlife, elaborate ceremonies were conducted. Burial ships were a particularly striking tradition. These ships, often real vessels or symbolic constructions, carried the deceased along with their weapons, tools, and treasures. Each item was chosen with care, meant to equip the fallen for their new life in Valhalla or Folkvanger. It was a final act of honor, preparing the departed as if to say, "Your story continues beyond this world." For some, flames would consume the ship in a grand funeral pyre, while for others, the vessel would be buried, taking its place as a bridge between life and the next realm. Offerings to the gods played a central role in these rituals. The Vikings believed that honoring the deities who governed life, death, and fate secured safe passage for their loved ones. These offerings ranged from simple tokens to great sacrifices, all meant to guide the deceased through the uncertain journey toward their final destination. Each burial carried meaning, not just for the dead, but for the living too. These rituals reminded the Vikings of their place in the cosmic web, with life tied to death and glory bound to courage. The great halls of Valhalla and the peaceful fields of Folkvangr did more than give the Vikings hope. They shaped the way they lived. These afterlives, brimming with purpose, made bravery not just a virtue but a way of being. To turn away from challenge or danger would be to turn your back on the chance for eternal honor. For Vikings, this meant facing life's battles, whether on the field or in daily struggles, with unrelenting determination. It wasn't only warriors who drew inspiration from these beliefs. Farmers, explorers, and even poets carried the ethos of courage and resilience. A life lived boldly, whatever its path, held its own kind of glory, and even those outside Valhalla's halls found pride in their traditions and deeds. At the heart of these beliefs lay a profound sense of cosmic balance. The Viking afterlife wasn't structured around morality in the way many modern systems of belief are. It didn't weigh good against bad or condemn souls to punishment for failure. Instead, it celebrated action over inaction and bravery over hesitation. Those who served others, contributed to the community, and embraced their place in the Viking way of life were often remembered with reverence, regardless of where they ultimately journeyed after death. The emphasis was always on living well and fully, trusting that the gods would honor the effort and spirit behind those choices. And while Valhalla might seem like a distant concept, locked in the imagination of a long-past age, its themes remain unexpectedly close. The promise of a celebratory afterlife recalls the human desire for purpose, for the idea that efforts in life matter deeply. At its core, Valhalla represents the hope that bravery and hard work are not just temporary, but will echo into eternity. Freyja's Folkvangr, too, offers a reflection of this hope, less about combat and more about finding peace and satisfaction after a life lived with passion. Even the shadowy twilight of Helheim carries meaning. Its quiet stillness reminds us that the Viking afterlife wasn't only about reward and glory. It also acknowledged the inevitability of endings that didn't carry fanfare. Life is varied, and so the realms of the afterlife mirrored that variety. Helheim wasn't a punishment. It simply was, a resting place for those whose lives followed different rhythms, quieter than those of warriors, but equally important in the grand tapestry of existence. For the Vikings, these afterlives weren't so much about endings as they were about continuations. A warrior didn't cease to be a warrior in Valhalla, and a farmer didn't leave the legacy of their harvests behind. What you were in life, you carried into death, and that belief added weight to every moment. It wasn't about how long you lived, but how well, and that mindset wove its way into every choice, every risk, and every battle. In a world often shaped by hardship, where the elements could be as fierce a foe as any human opponent, the Viking view of the afterlife offered comfort. It reassured them that no effort was wasted, no act of courage was forgotten. It promised not just a reward, but a continuation of what had made their lives meaningful. It turned fear into fuel, pushing them toward challenges rather than away from them. And in doing so, it created a culture of extraordinary resilience. The flames of a funeral pyre and the quiet fields of Folkvangr hold the same promise. They tell us that glory is not exclusive to great warriors or larger-than-life heroes. It is found in smaller acts, the courage to start again after failure, the resolve to face challenges when they seem insurmountable. The Vikings lit those flames not just for the dead, but as a beacon to the living, a reminder that every step forward carried significance. As the gods watched from Asgard, as Freyja walked her fields, and as Hel remained in her shadowy domain, the Viking afterlife pulsed with lessons about life itself. To live boldly, to face difficulty with unflinching determination, and to honor those who had come before, that was the heart of their belief. And in every story of Valhalla, Folkvanger, or even Helheim, we find the quiet assurance that no life lived with purpose ever truly fades into the void. Norse mythology, with its sweeping tales of gods, giants, and heroes, resonates far beyond the ancient world that created it. Even today, we feel its echoes in the stories we tell, the games we play, and even the days of the week we organize our lives by. These myths, filled with bravery, ingenuity, and a stark understanding of balance, have found new ways to captivate and inspire modern audiences. They might have begun in cold northern halls, passed quietly from one generation to the next, but today they draw millions into their timeless drama. You've likely encountered Norse mythology in forms you didn't expect. When you hear the word Thursday, you're invoking Thor, the thunder god who wields Mjolnir and protects both gods and humanity. The days of the week echo with the legacies of these myths, grounding them in the everyday rhythm of modern life. But their influence doesn't stop in subtle reminders like this. The stories of Odin, Freyja, Loki, Thor, and others have been reimagined for new generations across literature, film, and even video games. And while these retellings often take liberties, they preserve the essence of what made these myths endure for centuries. One of the most vivid examples of this legacy is in fantasy literature. In the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, Norse mythology provided a rich foundation for the worlds and creatures that have become core elements of modern storytelling. Tolkien's fascination with Old Norse sagas shaped Asterisk, the Hobbit Asterisk, and Asterisk, the Lord of the Rings, filling them with echoes of ancient tales. Dwarves, with their craftsmanship and underground homes, feel ripped straight from Viking sagas. Dragons like Smaug carry the menace of Fafnir, a creature both terrifying and alluring. Even the concept of a cursed treasure appears, nodding toward the darker lessons of Sigurdur's story. The language Tolkien developed for his works, too, carries these ancient influences. His love of Old Germanic and Scandinavian words breathed life into the languages of Middle-earth. It's hard to imagine modern fantasy as it exists without this deep-rooted connection to Norse myths shaping so much of its DNA. Beyond books, the vibrant personas of Norse mythology have stepped into the cultural spotlight on an even grander scale through films and television. Marvel's cinematic universe has introduced millions to Thor, the mighty protector with his enchanted hammer, and Loki, the clever, complicated trickster. These characters were first drawn from mythology, but adapted into modern heroes and villains with new depth for an eager audience. Thor's strength and goodness remain central, but Loki's mischief blends charm with pain, creating a figure shaped by ambition and flaws. In today's world, they are not just mythological characters, but cultural icons, their adventures unfolding on glowing screens rather than fireside storytelling. These adaptations keep Norse mythology alive, reshaping it with every new imagining. Then there is Odin, the all-seeing, all-knowing All-Father, who has become a symbol of wisdom in countless forms across media. Often portrayed as a brooding and powerful figure, Odin embodies the never-ending pursuit of knowledge, despite its immense personal cost. In films, books, and games, Odin often appears as a mentor, guiding others toward hard-earned wisdom. These portrayals highlight the timeless lessons of sacrifice and persistence, ensuring that the core of his mythology is never forgotten, even when reinterpreted. Video games, too, have embraced Norse mythology with a passion. These interactive experiences immerse players in landscapes alive with gods, frost-filled winds, and legendary battles, bringing myths to life in a way no other medium can match. Titles like God of War dive directly into Norse mythology, placing players alongside figures like Odin, Thor, and Freya, while the protagonist battles his way through their world. Another example, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, lets players step into the role of a Viking, exploring the culture and myths that defined their era. Even in Skyrim, a world inspired by Nordic aesthetics, echoes of Norse mythology reverberate throughout the game's quests and lore. Through these games, millions who may never have encountered these stories otherwise are now exploring their depths in first-hand, interactive ways. Even the grand narrative arc of Ragnarök, the great battle that brings destruction and renewal, has become a favorite theme in modern storytelling. Ragnarök, which portrays the world's end as both terrifying and hopeful, fits naturally into contemporary explorations of apocalyptic themes. Books and films love this idea, the cosmic battle that strips away the old to make room for the new. Perhaps this is why it continues to surface, offering both an epic conflict and an enduring reminder of life's cycles. Stories of destruction and renewal resonate universally, whether we're watching gods clash on the silver screen or immersing ourselves in tales of distant futures. But it isn't just the fantasy and drama of Norse mythology that keeps it so deeply rooted in modern culture. Its characters and stories speak to something profound, something uniquely human. These myths never shied away from showing flaws, not in their heroes, and certainly not in their gods. Thor, for all his strength, could be rash. Odin's pursuit of wisdom often alienated him from those he ruled, and Loki, however clever, often found his schemes spiraling beyond his control. This honesty about imperfection made the characters relatable, even as they wielded powers far beyond human abilities. Their struggles, desires, and failures mirror aspects of our own lives, encompassing lessons of bravery and folly alike. This is why Norse mythology speaks not just to those fascinated by ancient cultures, but also to anyone searching for meaning in a complex world. The tales value resilience and the ability to face hardship valiantly, even when the odds seem overwhelming. The gods of Asgard meet their fate at Ragnarök, not with despair, but with the same conviction they carried in life. Thor's final steps after defeating Ginnungagap, Odin's sacrifice for wisdom, Freya's quiet strength. These moments demonstrate that honor often lies not in victory, but in the effort itself. They remind us that courage is not always about winning, but about refusing to falter. It's not surprising, then, that modern audiences continue to be drawn to these stories. Beyond the swords and sagas, beyond the epic battles with dragons and giants, Norse mythology holds on to values that still strike a chord: the power of cleverness, the importance of sacrifice, and the inevitability yet beauty of life's cycles. These narratives are not bound by their original time and culture. Instead, they've traveled with us, adapted to new contexts, while still preserving the threads that first made them strong. And they reach even farther than films, games, or literature. They remain embedded in the smallest, often unnoticed parts of our lives. When we name a ship or a sports team after a character like Thor, or give an organization a title tied to Vikings, we're acknowledging, however subtly, the legacy of these myths. Their influence is also hidden in language, where words like berserk evoke the fury of Viking warriors, or when phrases like Thor's Day roll off the tongue as if they were never tied to a god of thunder. So why have they stayed with us? Perhaps it's because these myths, with all their cosmic battles and epic journeys, tell deeply human stories. They're about bravery, yes, but also about the cost of that bravery. They're about striving for greatness while acknowledging your flaws. And they're about fighting not because victory is certain, but because some things are worth fighting for anyway. These stories continue to teach us about balance between chaos and order, wisdom and power, destruction and renewal. They remind us that no matter how grand or small our lives may feel, there's value in pressing forward, in embracing the cycles of loss and growth that shape us all. As these ancient tales find their way into new forms, whether as blockbuster heroes or video game legends, their core truths remain constant. Norse mythology isn't isolated in the past. It lives on, adapted and reimagined, but forever capable of guiding us. Even as the world changes, the wisdom of Odin, the strength of Thor, and the resilience of humanity endure. They remind us that in every cycle, there are lessons to carry forward, connecting us, like Yggdrasil itself, to something timeless. And in this enduring connection, the myths find new life. Even in the midst of chaos, Norse mythology holds a quiet strength. Stories of Odin's relentless pursuit of wisdom remind us of the power of understanding, while Thor's unwavering protection reflects the importance of standing strong, even against impossible odds. These ancient tales show us the cycles of life, how destruction leads to renewal, and how balance carries us through. As you drift to sleep, let these stories settle in your mind. Picture their rhythm, like waves quietly lapping the shore. The echoes of these myths are always near, offering guidance, resilience, and calm in every chapter of life. No matter where you are,